to another Apollo Papyrus episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest is a poet and the author of the upcoming poetry collection, Beauty and the Branches. Her name is Tory Tomberlin, and here's my interview with Tory. Tory Tomberlin, welcome to Apollo Papyrus.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really honored, and it's a privilege to be here, especially to talk about poetry.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Oh, certainly. Well, I come from a seasoned healthcare professional background. I'm now in retirement, and my creative expression has just exploded. I have studied various poets, Keats, Shelley, Wordsworth, Yeats. In high school, I was exposed to literature at a very, very young age, and I had incredible teachers. I've been so excited to share my poetry collection with you and so privileged to be here today. I love castles and kings, write poems about that, wildlife, forests and streams. All of this, I'm just thrilled and honored to share my beautiful poetry collection. My finely chiseled words are crafted into my poems. So I was wondering, along this poetry path, if we'd like to take a little journey back into the beginning of poetry.
Sure, I've got time for that.
Okay, just a couple of quick things. As I was reading, going through the oldest known poems date back to ancient times, when poetry was often recited or sung as a way of preserving oral history and their genealogy and current events that happened. Early poetry was really related to more hymns, chants, other songs, rhythmic, if you will, in nature. So I just wanted to tell you how interested I am in just discussing poetry, not only my side of poetry, but starting from the beginning. For example, the Odyssey, written by Homer, was an epic poem, and the first poems were actually epic. The tale of the shipwrecked sailor, for example, were epic poems that date back to 2000 BCE, things like that, which I find are fascinating.
Without spoiling too much of your poetry collection, Beauty and the Branches, which has not yet been released, how many poems will be in the collection? What will be any overarching theme be about, and when will it be released?
The release is going to be in 4 to 6 weeks. I really have a vast array of poems, everything from English history to wildlife. And my chapters are actually condensed into branches. So I have 7 branches in my collection. Wildlife, European tones, romantic poems, poems about Saturn, and just a really magnificent array. I'm very excited. If I could share a poem or two, if we have time to do a poem or two with you.
We have time for about 2.
Okay, that sounds terrific. Would you like me to read now?
Sure.
Oh, wonderful. This first poem is entitled Beneath My Forest Feet. The dry dirt crunches beneath my forest feet. The trees greet me in fullness, silently, majestically, showing me the wonders ahead, welcoming me in nature's fashion. The path before me narrowing, a simple wooden bridge before me, sturdy it will hold me. I cross in slow, deliberate steps, the magical moment across the bridge. My soul encapsulates the rest. The narrow dirt path with the rock bed below, all the greenery to behold. Tree trunks massive and mossy and bridging every step. The narrow path full of new suns signals me to carry on. Golden rays begin to sing, the trees and butterfly wings, glimmering butter amber hues, the forest sounding in delightful rings, ferns in procession looking dainty against the towering mossy trees in vision, green of every forest shade. How difficult to leave the forest as I quietly walk away. Another of my poems is entitled Musical Forest. Shimmering water trickling, subdued on the well-worn forest stone. The richness of the ancient forest trees, the music from the waterfall in concert with the leaves. Playing the soft, trickling, unrehearsed symphony to please. Step into the botanical chorus. Play on evermore in the musical forest.
Okay, how can readers pre-order your poetry collection?
All they need to do is to go to www.tjpoetry.com. There's a contact button. Just press that, put in your minimal name, email address, and I will get back to you and keep you updated on the exact release date. So excited to be here.
And I will include a link to the website you mentioned in the text description of this episode once the podcast episode is uploaded.
Oh, wonderful. And may I ask you to send me a copy of the recording if I could?
I will do that.
Thank you so much. And if you want to continue the poetry reading at some time in the future, I would be happy to do another reading once we have a launch date for the book. I would love to come back.
Okay. Why did you choose to write poems about the subject matter you did?
It's inspiration. I've done a lot of traveling in my youth, and the inspiration is just there within you. And it's just a matter of churning the creative juices and putting it on paper so that it is understood by the readers of poetry and loved.
What are the easiest and hardest parts of writing poetry for you?
The easiest part is coming up with the subject matter. The hardest part is finishing and fine-tuning, making sure that it's clear and lovely and beautiful to the reader in lyric style, which is my genre in poetry.
What do you want readers to grasp from your poetry collection?
Oh, just the beauty of everything around us and the wonders of nature and of us as humans and wildlife, and the astounding creation that we have here. Just to enjoy, we have, on the social media and television, we have a lot of negativity, and I just wanted some beautiful poetry out there that made sense.
How would you describe your style of poetry? I know you've read a couple of your poems, but how would you describe your style of poetry?
I would say it's lyrical. It's very compelling. My poetry takes you there, everywhere from African elephants to the Cotswolds, England. I just want you to be there with me. That's what I mean about a poetry path. Come walk that path. It's beautiful.
When did you first develop an interest in writing poetry?
From a very young age, I kept journals. I was in theater arts and then exposed to literature as well. So it was just a natural progression. Once I had time to put things down in writing, it just flowed.
Is your poetry collection, is that going to be self-published, traditionally published, or hybrid published?
It will be self-published.
Who has influenced your writing? And of course, there might be a lot of people you could give you could give as an answer to this question, but who has influenced your writing and how?
A lot of, as far as the poetry goes, the classics, Keats and Shelley, Shakespeare, of course, sonnets, influenced me from a very young age and influenced the fact that I do write poetry now. I had teachers who influenced me, and so we studied the classics. So I would say my influence comes from the classics, including literature classics, Jane Eyre and so forth on that. Louisa May Alcott, poets, beautiful Elizabeth Barrett Browning is one of my mentors as far as poetry goes.
My final question, I'm going to pivot a little bit away from poetry here. Have you considered writing a novel or a nonfiction book? And if so, do you have any ideas for novels or nonfiction books that you may write?
Yes, as far as fiction, I've been hammering out a couple of pages of a cybercrime romance. So it's about a physician and his family and his dynasty and all that, and they get find people hacking into their healthcare system, and all this happens. Cybercrime happens, and then the romance along with that. So that's my idea.
Tory, thank you for appearing on Apollo Papyrus. You were an amazing guest, and once you have a couple or more books released, I might even be interested in interviewing you again in another season of this podcast.
Oh, I would be so delighted to do that. And hopefully even maybe another poetry reading if you so choose.
I enjoyed interviewing Tory, and she was a wonderful guest. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding you all to write and read your passion. Bye for now. Remember to subscribe to the Apollo Papyrus YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/@ApolloPapyrus and the Apollo Papyrus Substack newsletter at apollopapyrus.substack.com. Y'all can visit the Apollo Papyrus website at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/Apollo Papyrus and follow Apollo Papyrus on Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Apollo Papyrus. Copyright 2024, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.